I want to ask each witness so that we have this for the record. Do you prefer the FDA rule or the passage of the VALID Act? Why don't we start with you? I think you've already expressed it, but let's say it again.
We think that the VALID Act has a
Just
number.
yes, which one? What do you support?
We would prefer comprehensive legislation to unilateral FDA action.
And you support the VALID Act?
We think there are a number of extremely positive attributes of the VALID Act and committed to working with the committee.
So you're
on it.
no on one and lukewarm on the other. Is that right?
We think legislation
I
is.
mean,
the way to go.
yes or no? Do you support the VALID Act? If you don't, you don't. If you
We
do,
have worked earnestly on it, and we will commit to continuing to do so. We think it's the right approach moving forward.
okay, yes,
We strongly support the VALID Act.
good.
The CAP also strongly supports the VALID Act, and we have real problems with the FDA's proposed rule as it's currently written.
We also support the VALID Act and feel that inaction would be the worst outcome.
I cannot speak for all academic medical centers, but those I
You're
spoke
here
with.
Testifying. Do you?
Those that I represent do not support the VALID Act. We believe there's room to find middle ground. We do not support the
What's
FDA
the middle
proposed rule.
ground?
The middle ground is to ask the question, what are all of the options? Why do we need to go all the way to 100 out of the gate? What are the other options? There are other options here. There are options for an outcomes-driven
But I'm asking you
approach.
to state the outcomes. I mean, other pathways.
One pathway is to center on proficiency testing. Dr. Karcher mentioned the importance of proficiency testing. A pathway that asks laboratories to undergo proficiency testing prior to launch achieves the endpoint without the burden. There are other options.
You know what terrifies me? Having a test relative to cancer, and it comes up positive, but it's not accurate. And I think that that is the most troubling to me. That frightens me. And I think that it's a chilling case for anyone. I do think that that there is a good support, solid support for the VALID Act, and most frankly, I think that Congress needs to be pursuing that. The lack of action by Congress really forced FDA's hand to come up with their proposal, and I think that's a fact of life here. So I think it's fashionable, at least in some quarters, to just bash the FDA coming and going, but it's up to Congress to act, and I do think that the answers, with some refinements in the VALID Act, would be an appropriate way to go. So I can ask many questions. I mean, there are only two states in the country, New York State and Washington State. They're the only two states to pass laws to regulate LDTs. The New York experience is a really rather broad one, and of course, states approve the labs, but there are only two states that do that. So we can't look to a majority of states and their experiences, but it's worth mentioning that two states do have passed laws to regulate the LDTs. I think I'll yield back, Mr.
Thank you.
Chairman.